probably the wrong question because it doesn't have to give the billion-dollar website feel.
Test before you spend.
It doesn't have to be sign up for this demo, get your 2-for-1 special, BOGO.
This is a lot of what the systems you want to have integrated to your front door are.
Is that a tree or is that a human?
Yeah, exactly.
Should I crash into it? Hello and welcome to another Get the Money, a discussion between founders, entrepreneurs, and the like. Today, we dive into the core pillars of modern go-to-market. And that's really asking the question, is your house in order? What does your front door look like? Is it inviting, and does it have a message that delivers? And after spending all that budget to get people to your digital party, do you have the right follow-up to have them convert? So whether you're watching the entire video or listening on your commute to work, we hope you enjoy and find something insightful. Today, we're going to dive into a sort of what I believe to be what the GTM firm will look at as a whole when we're approaching new customers. We've had those initial conversations. Maybe we're dipping our toes into the water and seeing what we can do. And then what we would potentially be able to do is provide help and advice in these core pillars. One of the biggest important things in GTM, right, is having a really awesome front door. And we're just going to dive so fast into this because we're going to have a lot to talk about, and I don't want to spend too much time trying to lead up to it. But the front door being your webpage, your website, where are you sending people to the most, right? How does it look?
Is it a good way to say curb appeal, John?
Yeah, curb appeal, right? If you've got...
You just went and bought a house, right? So how's that even work? Did you see it from the outside and go, I want to go in there so badly?
That's actually a good analogy. And I'm going to do a callback to one of our team calls saying, people have said we do too many analogies. Well, buckle up because we're a group of analogies and we're just going to keep on going with it. We're going to do our best to explain those analogies. But yes, when I was shopping for a house, I didn't want to see any of those houses that had ugly front doors. If the first picture was ugly, I probably wasn't going to scroll. Did I miss out on some gems? Possibly. The inside might have been fully renovated and they just skipped the outside. Who knows? So to help us understand a little bit more about the front door, we actually have a web designer, a part of our team, and we're going to have him kind of go into what does it take to have a really, really good first impression. So Paul, let us know, what is it that you should be focusing on to have that good first impression?
Yeah, I'd say question that most people get wrong oftentimes. I've been asked many times to build the billion-dollar website. Like, for example, a lot of people I speak to, can you make a website like Apple? But that's where people get it wrong because the first impression isn't always just about how it looks, but instead about providing clarity and very clear benefits of what you have to do. And usually step one is to understand what is even the goal behind the website and who am I talking to. I think we'll go a bit deeper into messaging later, but it's obviously very, very, very different speaking to, for example, a website for a B2B SaaS is very different than Apple because it's a totally different product they're selling. So for us, I would say for the first impression, the most important thing is providing clarity with a good headline that actually explains, hey, what can we do for you? What's in it for the visitor? That's the biggest one. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So you're talking like features over product or really leading in with a solution versus why you should buy, right? Start to really talk about their pain, their misery, or jump straight into the what benefits are you going to get out of this?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if people don't understand what they get out of it, they just won't stay and they won't read further. And then there's a bunch of different options to do this. You can call out their pain points, provide them a solution, and usually then throughout the page, you can have a framework of this is your problem, here's how we solve it with a solution. Going back to the importance of the first impression, at the end of the day, the website is important because people judge the quality of whatever comes after. They judge the quality of your product based on what they see on your website. And that's why it's very important to have a high quality website that provides clarity. So for example, for us as a GTM firm, it's about showing social proof. That's one of the core components of something in our industry. And then also showing what we offer and what we can do. But social proof is always one of the most important ones, meaning testimonials, company logos that we've worked with. That's one that you can always add to improve the first impression. Because if you have impressive people you've worked with, then you can just basically leverage their brand for your own benefit. Yeah,
that definitely sounds like some of the most important stuff. I mean, every company is going to win with social proof, and a lot of that can come from video. And I think one of the questions that I have is, in your opinion, where should a video live on a website? right? Because I've had these conversations with many companies of like, oh, we want to do a brand video, we want to do an explainer video, and I can lead them down the path of which one they should do. But then the question comes, where should it be? Should it be top fold? Should it be down a little bit? Is it like case by case?
I would say it's definitely case by case. Oftentimes really like in the top section, you can have the video be just slightly above the fold so people can see what they can watch. That's also how we do it at the GTM firm. We have our explainer video right at the top there. Especially having the video be like properly produced, that also again massively improves the first impression, because it's a difference if you can actually go out and spend some money on a proper studio and on equipment and all of that stuff. At the end of the day, it's about showing a good first impression and having like that very clean front door with the website. I guess one more thing to cover on that note would be the homepage over the landing page. That's also something that a lot of people get wrong from my experience. And that is that the homepage isn't necessarily for like a specific offer, product, or campaign. Really what you should focus on with your homepage is the overall message of your company and what you're doing, showing off social proof, as I said earlier. And then with landing pages, you can really dive into specific offerings, into product you're selling, and also just use it for campaigns, for example, webinars, stuff like that. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. And before I segue, because that's a perfect little send off to our next portion of this conversation, which is once you have a nice landing page, first impression, what are the things that you can do to help people guide them to the next step? I wanted to ask, what is one of your favorite websites that you've either developed yourself or that you've seen online that kind of gives you that $1 billion website feel?
I'd say that's probably the wrong question, because it doesn't have to give the $1 billion website feel. That's not what matters at all.
Gave the right answer, Paul, because I think that everything is going to be favored for a reason. You couldn't have scripted that answer better, and I loved it. I almost jumped out of my seat when I heard it. I saw John's reaction as well. So this $1 billion website is a favorite of mine for fundamental reasons, not for anything else. And I call that last one standing. And I was always enamored by their website, and it made me realize that they were so in tune with their customers. And this company is called Dell. And when you went to the Dell website, right, last one standing, no one else is around with the name. The guy came back, his name's on the building still. And when you go there, small business, medium business, state, local government, like it really wanted to know, who are you, Bobby? How can I show you what we're doing for others? And let me help you too right now. And I thought to myself, breadcrumb trails, man, that took me to heaven.
Yeah. You know what? I wonder then, that's the $1 billion website has a stigma. It has the wrong impression. Speaking of first impressions, when someone thinks $1 billion website, they think beautiful. They think something that's inviting. And obviously these are very important things. Aesthetics are great and important, but what's more important than that? The messaging, the stuff that gets you to the next step. And that's a perfect time to bring in Keith Newman, who has a lot of experience with testing the messaging and also has a lot of experience in this group where we're working with founders, startups, and people who want to see things happen super fast. And we have to come in and let them know it takes a little bit longer to test a message, to truly give it a chance. So Keith, what are the types of things that we can do to really get a startup that opportunity to truly test their message? And what are the things you do to test a message?
Yeah, that's fun, John, because it sounds like such the boring topic, but it really is the most important, and it gets quite exciting. It's fun too, because ultimately messaging starts with really understanding your audience, who you're trying to communicate with, and what is the desired outcome from that conversation or communication, right? So if I really understand that customer, I really know who they are, now I have a real opportunity to inform them. And it goes back to that design question we were just talking about. The best design is going to answer that question of the person before they even ask it. So there's a level of intuitiveness into the conversation that impacts design and that impacts messaging. So make sure you understand your target audience. You have the right words. And that's so important in this noisy time that we're in, with so much content and media just rolling over us all like waves at the beach. Have the right words that resonate with them, that they like, not things that they don't understand or over their heads or offensive, right? And then build a compelling story with those words in your headlines, in your title tags, in your call outs and things like that. Bobby's a great storyteller. Why? Because he really makes sure he understands the audience and the community he's trying to reach. when I sit with Paul and we talk about website design, he asks me, who's the person we're trying to reach? How are we going to move them along the conversation? What is it they need to hear? So I really think that's the foundation.
And I've heard you before too. One of the biggest mistakes is launching messaging without validation. Tell me more about that. What is it that you're looking for? How do you get that validation?
Well, by doing your research, what words and what stories and what elements are going to connect with them. So test before you spend. Otherwise, you'll be broke. So testing can happen in a couple of ways. It is the harder work. It is the science of testing a word, a headline, a post. But before you spend thousands of dollars on ad creative or video even, make sure you have the right story and the right words. And you do that with interviews. You do that with those stories. So I definitely spend when I am doing research with customers, and it depends the size of the project, but a big ad budget will definitely send money at understanding who the audience is and what messages that are going to resonate most with them, and identify who the right voices are to communicate as well.
Right. And then something that we've always run into is, budget. How do you break down budget on those two very important pieces, which is awareness versus conversion, right? Early stage of trying to make the message stick, and the other end of the stage where somebody's actually taking that next step.
And that's a good question. So again, it depends on the stage of the company and where they're at and what the size of the project is. So I'm going to hopefully use things like SEO and other content that I've created to inform my decision making and helping me. And then I have other ways of doing a test. For example, I'm running a LinkedIn ad campaign right now, right? And I understand how well that's performing from an impression standpoint and gaining awareness, or if I'm trying to drive a response, sign up for my webinar, download my white paper, purchase this course. I'll understand how well that's performing, and I'll try several different other types of creative on a small budget, see what works, and then allocate investment where I'm seeing the results. So that's just called optimization and allocation. So we'll take those steps down that path.
Right. Here's a question that's going to go back to Paul. How many CTAs should you have on a web page? Or is there a magic number?
Ideally, you should keep it very, very minimal and slim, because if you have too many at once, people just get confused, right? Keith, what would your answer be from a messaging perspective?
1.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that.
Now I'm going to call on Bobby too after you go ahead, Keith. I'm going to call on Bobby after you.
John, I'm gonna say the answer everyone hates. It depends.
Yeah.
But the truth is, there are certain commerce sites with lots of different offerings that want a good, better, best, that want, lots of different looks. So they're always going to get you to consider something like the TGI Fridays menu that's 17 pages long. Who the F wants that? Well, they figured it out, man, because it works, right?
Yeah.
But I like the simplicity.
Yeah, that's you kind of answer what I was going to throw over to Bobby, which is we got the 31 flavors tech company that thinks they can do it all. What should they really be doing instead of 31 flavors?
So I actually believe there should be a call to action in everything you write. And that action may not necessarily be to do something. It could be to elicit emotion. So if you'll see when we get folks to write about things, the intent in there, what problem did the customer have? Who else may have those problems? And can we help you? And then we're in salvation. We're not in selling mode, because if you identify a call to action in the message you're delivering that others hear, it's kind of like the word of God, be a good person. I mean, these things you can have, it doesn't have to be sign up for this demo, get your 2-for-1 special, BOGO. Everyone thinks that's the call to action. It can be in the message. That's the first part. And the second part is always be informing, because if you're not, your competition is. And in today's world, that information happens and changes at the speed and pace that we've never seen before. Product enhancements, products developments, new competitors popping up. And so I think sometimes those call to actions may be FOMO-ish. We're seeing a lot around the community aspect. What are other people doing so I don't have to go and figure it out the hard way?
Exactly. That's a part of testing the message, right? You look around, see what others are doing that's in the industry that you're hoping to make a huge splash in, and what can you do to not copy their homework, but just enough to see if it works for you too? Or is there a better way that you can do it that'll hook a lot more from that area? And that might actually be another great segue into what I'd like to talk about, which is one of the ways you could test the message is start recording a bunch of content. Get on a tool like this, which we're on Riverside right now, where you can record content edit it within the suite, export the video in all the different formats, and you could just start pray and spraying. You could use multiple messages all at once, and really that's where volume matters. A lot of people like to say quality over quantity, and of course, as you can see, I really love quality of video, but at the end of the day, quantity is going to win because it's a noisy world. And if you don't create your own massive amount of noise, you're going to get lost in everyone else's. But that's one of those ways that you can test the messaging. It's also another thing that you can do to look at others. What are they doing with video? How can you leverage video to echo what they're talking about and get some of their audience over to you? And then what are the different channels that you're going to be using to get that video out? And to call back to Paul's point, a video on your homepage should be well produced. It shouldn't be a scrappy video unless you have to. You want to put as much budget into that video as you can, but you don't have to pour that much budget into every single other video that you create. So UGC is a huge one. If you're going to an event, train your team to pull their phone out and talk about the event and what they're doing there, especially sales teams. Content's going to be one of those pieces that helps you drive funnel activity and at the end of the day, get some sort of CTA towards the website. And that's sort of like we're building this analogy now. We're right at the middle where you've got a beautiful front door. You've got messaging that you've tested and it's starting to work. You have video content, visual content. You have a plan for what you're going to put in the copy that's driving traffic towards that front door. And if the messaging is right, people are going to hopefully take that next step. And what's really important about this part is what are they going to do once they get there? Or are you able to understand the buyer process when they get there? Is your plumbing working? You know, if they walk into this room, are you tracking what they're doing there? It sounds kind of creepy, but do you know what they're doing? I think we've got our friend here, Ben, who's been in the trenches of CRMs. And I want to dive into the idea of making sure that your house is clean before you start inviting people in. There's an analogy.
Yeah, John, it's a great point. And not to get too lost in the analogy here, we're talking a lot about the front door, but if you see a modern front door, what do you see? You see a Ring camera. You can see who's at your door, who's there, who's coming through. Did they leave a package? What'd they do there? So this is a lot of what the systems you want to have integrated to your front door are. And a lot of times now it's almost like using ChatGPT only to write copy. You know, the systems that you can integrate to this website, they're advanced. They can tell you a lot more than you think they can tell you. Where'd the person come to your website from? What'd they click on when they were there? How much time did they spend on each side? So we would recommend like Google Analytics. You can connect it to your HubSpot as well. And you can produce graphs and charts showing which part of your website was successful, which part wasn't, and have it all mapped and tracked. It's critical. It's critical to the engagement aspect of this because in this way, we can see different marketing actions, different content, what's successful, and going forward, how should we continue to engage?
Yeah. And I'm actually going to call back to Keith for this one really quick. You said a lot of things that leads to attribution, which is a huge portion of how marketing can understand what's working. So Keith, how does attribution help you in testing the message?
Yeah. So if we want to know where we're spending and being most efficient with our spend, so understanding where those sources are that drove the results, the desired results. So was it the press release? Was it the billboard? Was it the Google SEO campaign? Whatever it was, what drove the desired outcome, whether it was traffic to the website, traffic to a homepage. And you can do those tracking things with certain codes, cookies, etc. So we want to figure out how do we continue to optimize our spend to get a higher return on ad spend or a higher click-through rate, etc.
Yeah. And I'm going to go to Bobby for this really quick. Budgeting, right? Is this something that's ever come up for you where we're blindly spending money and we don't know where it's coming from? And why are we losing all this money on stuff that we thought was, but maybe it wasn't that burned all this money? You know, what has happened?
Let's just think. So that should be a specific episode on intentful spending.
Yeah.
And I say
I'll
that
write that down.
because we see this a lot of startups that we either help or get dropped into, or when they call us, we do a reflection back. What did you do in the past? Because there's no sense looking forward unless we at least understand where you were, what you came from, what you did. And I know you know this, John, because you ask a loaded question. Let's just say we went to a small Series A started company. They got $6 million last year, and we see that $2 million was spent on marketing. I started like, what did you do? Are you a trade show company? 17 trade shows? Wait, out of the country for a product you don't have localization on? Wait, what? So I think that
So how well did that do? Did we get a return on that? How many leads? What does our funnel look like?
So it starts with leadership, knowing your ICP and where to go and what to do. And a lot of times, you hear us say fishing. I'm a big fisherman lover and ocean fishing's the best, but you got to know a lot of factors. Wind, water temperature, boat speed, what's biting today, what happened last night with the moon. I mean, there's so many factors that are just like your website and your buyers. And so from that perspective, I like to start by saying, let's look at how much you have to spend and let's come up with something fair that if we were to burn that money, we didn't care. And let's then look at what are the 2 or 3 paths or messages that have worked before that we start juicing and revving. You hear me say revving that engine, redlining it, getting to that point where you can just almost get that gasket to blow. No car pun intended.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do that, you then also get to pressure test the team. So this is an important part. As you're going through these stages, these team members won't grow with you. So at this stage where that messaging works, you need to make sure that all hands on deck are prepared to actually attack that problem.
Yep. Everyone should be trained on the message, which we've already talked about. It has been tested, or your team is at an event, and we actually have one coming up where we've talked to the team and said, we all need to have conversations with as many people as we can and test the different pieces of the message that we want to try to use after the event, because it's so important to say, you're interested in this problem that we actually kind of solved. Let's talk about it. And then you talk through it, and then they give you some ideas of how you may have earned their trust.
So it's May, John. I think if we let's give a real example, because everyone wants to hear, okay, enough of the words. Did it ever work? Where did you do it? So we had March messaging madness at a company that we landed, and the deck was crazy. The story was insane. They had missed multiple consecutive quarter after quarter after quarter after quarter after quarter. Yeah, that's a lot of quarters. And in March messaging madness, we wanted to understand when people heard the things, what resonated. And so we thought, who's the voice that we hear come from top of the hill? Gartner. All right. So it just so happened we pitched the Gartner folks, and he kind of cocked his head. And 30 days later, after 100 pitches to a variety of audiences, he said, "You nailed this. May I share it?" And that same week, we had 3 active opportunities in our pipeline because the material rocked so well that he handed it out to people and they understood immediately the problem that we solved.
Yep. And I think there's another point to this message testing, right, out in the field, is it doesn't only have to be that one special message. It should be multiple messages within your company, but they should still call back to what you're trying to do. That's the most important piece, because if you test a message that is one of the flavors you don't want to sell, and then it's like, it hooks everybody. It's like, oh crap, we gotta activate the engineers and start really building this piece. It's like, you gotta find those flavors, your vanilla, your chocolate, maybe your strawberry, and then test
John,
those 3.
I call that a messaging matrix. So I define each of the decision makers, whether it's a vertical or by title, and I create a messaging matrix for each of those people at the awareness, education, consideration, purchase level, right? The second piece to think about from this messaging effort, it's a cyclical process. In other words, you talked about going out in the field and getting in front of customers. There has to be the feedback loop, right? Of all the people that are out there in the field that are engaging with customers, sharing that back with the people that are developing the stories and the messaging. And a lot of times these things are siloed. That's sales, or that's the, sales rep, or that's biz dev, or that's tech. We all need everybody contributing into the process.
Right. And we actually have this sort of coming in hot. Next week is SaaStr, and actually this will be posted right in the middle of SaaStr. So if you're listening to this, maybe you're at SaaStr, look for Bobby Napolitania, look for our friends. You'll see them in social media, so you'll know who we're talking about. But we're going to be going to this event and talking directly to the people that we want to talk to, test the messaging, and then after the event, we're coming together. We're going to record some video that's mainly for us to learn. What did you learn from all the conversations, Bobby? What did you learn? Bring it together, and then start to really, really, truly develop the message for the future.
That's a great event too, because they have the unique combination at SaaStr of reaching executives, technical people, founders, salespeople, marketing people. So you can kind of play round robin. You almost create the whole messaging matrix there.
To close this out, because we're getting probably over time, but I want Bobby to dive a little bit into this last piece of the GTM firm's sort of I wouldn't call it the foundation yet, but the idea of the front door is nice. You've got the messaging tested. They've crossed the threshold. You know that they did because you have all of your plumbing fixed and your house is clean. What happens once they get in there? What is it that we need to focus on like as the humans involved in this, right? The sales team. What does the follow-up look like? What do they need to do? And we've heard the analogy before, right? We don't want anybody to drown at the pool. Well, we don't have a pool at this house. What do we not want them to do in this house or this storefront that's kind of like Walmart? Get lost?
For those that don't understand the analogy, you have lifeguards at pool because children can't swim. Prospects don't know where to go and they need guided and they need watched over. And so we see as though the prospects are like children. Why? They're that valuable to us. And with that, preparation is probably the one that, drives me more than ever crazy. I've been blessed to work at the places where we knew that the educated individual was our secret weapon and moat. And so we would get certified on our message. And I'm not just talking we, the frontline people. Look, we've all been in the boat. Stroke. When the rows go together, it's beautiful. No one gets hit with the oar in the head because that's when stuff hurts. I like to break it down to lowest common denominators and fundamentals. I'm going to presume we've all been to a Walmart since 99% of America. And the first thing that happens when we walk in is we get greeted. How are you doing today? I walk in there thinking, this is all right. I'm going to spend some money. This is a good experience. And when you think through that, people come to your home, people come to your event, people come somewhere. What's that first impression? You'll see me. I like to engage you, ask you your name. I think we start looking at, so you came to my front door. How long did you stay? Where did you go? What did you do? Did you take any artifacts? Can I search?
And that goes back to attribution. And then I was going to ask you there's many ways you could follow up with somebody. You can give them a call. You can give them an email. You can hit them in the DMs now. Which one do you do?
So that's a great question. A little OCD anal. So every day I wake up early and I look at who is on my LinkedIn profile. I send them notes. Hey, what are you thinking about? Why did you look? Why did you send me the note? Some I just ignore because they're quick messages. But that's the best way, I think, to start from that engagement perspective. Sales readiness, message clarity, and the ability for team enablement. And this was a big problem last week. I hadn't thought about this. I was a little bummed. Now, why? Because I'm not sparring. I'm not actually fighting. I tell people Mike Tyson says it best. Everyone has a plan to get punched in the mouth. Today's salespeople, this happened at the conversation yesterday. The salesperson is going to be like tomorrow's war fighter. And for any of you that are seeing how we're digitizing our war fighters today, they're going to be internet connected so that they get real-time information of what's happening around them in the surroundings. That's important to stay alive. The same thing we're seeing occurring because your competitors are releasing at a speed and pace that you can't train your salespeople at. And this CEO said to me, I'm really concerned that my army will not be able to fight because I can't supply and keep them ready enough. And I started thinking, oh my God, that's true. It's happening.
Yeah. The speed of innovation is definitely crushing the sales teams because you're no longer able to handle the rebuttal because it just happened yesterday or it just happened 30 seconds ago.
We saw the best use case for the meta glasses. You all have meta glasses. It's going to feed you. Bobby needs to know this. Tell him he knows that. By the way, did you see his third quarter from last year and his oil production for that? And I'm going to be able to reference this in the sales call. If you had, then it would be like these Matthew McConaughey Agent Force. I didn't get a bad deal. We'll all watch TV, I presume. Go ahead, Keith. I'm sorry. You were about to say something.
Well, it's so funny too, because there's not one answer here, but I've just been really surprised with all the innovation, still how unprepared salespeople are when I have them on the phone, how little homework they've done, how little on brand their messages, how little they know about what I'm looking for and who I am and all that. So it's so funny. It goes back to really 101. Do your homework. Bobby, you said it first. I mean, unbelievable.
Chopping the wood's the hardest part. We all hate to put the
hardest
work in.
part. I just wanted to double click on that because we could talk about all the, other stuff for sure. And the AI agents and glasses and all that shit. And it's all real. It's all real. But man, if you don't do the base stuff, it's not going to have anywhere near the return it should.
Yeah. Now we're getting into like conspiracy level Terminator right here where it's, they're coming for us. But at the end of the day, even in video right now, this tool that we're using does have AI. It makes clips for me, but it still hasn't found the gems that I can find as a human because it's so much data to consume that the AI is still not ready. So if you're trusting the automation only, then you're going to fail, which is why fractional support from a human being is still going to be huge, at least for the next 5 more years. Maybe it's 1 year because we're accelerating how fast things move. But
John, is that why all first versions of self-driving cars wrecked?
you better believe it. It's because all of the what is it called? The computer vision was still pretty fresh. Is that a tree or is that a human?
Yeah, exactly.
Should I crash into it? Yeah, let's find out what it is. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you found some value in this one. And if you did, send us an email. Let us know what you liked most about this episode. And we're also accepting feedback, accepting ideas for future discussions. What is it that you want to hear about when it comes to go-to-market or just in general, getting the money? We will have a lot more resources coming out of this specific episode because we do feel like there is a core playbook in this go-to-market strategy. We have a lot of plans here at the GTM firm, and we can't wait to share it with all of you. So if you're new, sign up for the newsletter. Be first to know when the next episode comes out. And if you're not new, please grab the link, send it to a friend, family, or colleague, and we'll see you in the next one.